So, greetings. I want to begin by expressing gratitude for the opportunity to gather with you. Thank you. Even though we are separated by distance, the beauty of faith is that it creates a connection that extends beyond geography, beyond our differences. And for that, I am grateful. Today, here we are, connected, unified as one. I believe that something special will come from this moment. I pray that there is something that resonates with your spirit and reminds you to continue to activate your faith. One of the most impactful pieces of advice I received as an adult was simple yet profound. Matthew, come in your own way. That phrase, those words shook me at my core. We live in a world that encourages blending in, where being different feels uncomfortable, sometimes even risky. But those words, come in your own way, reminded me to show up as my true self. No mask, no filters, intentionally and authentically. Now, for many years, I believed I was living my truth. I checked all the boxes. I followed the rules. I created an image of perfect imperfection. I stepped up when I saw a need. I took pride in caring for others. I did all the things for all the people. I led myself to believe that my way, the idea of being busy, of putting others first, of fixing other people, was my truest gift to the world. Yet, I struggled. In the midst of striving to do all the good things, something still felt off, disconnected, performative. In all of the good things, I strayed from the God things. I had created who I thought the world needed me to be, versus seeking out who I was created to be in the world. I was navigating in my will so that people would speak highly of Matthew rather than seeing and acknowledging something much greater than I. I controlled the narrative. But the moment I was advised to come in my own way, a new journey began. This journey required more than just my will be done. It demanded that I surrender, that I fully trust in something greater than me. I stumbled across Psalms 139. I encourage you to read and unpack the entire chapter, but today I want to focus on two familiar verses, 13 and 14. For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. Your works are wonderful, and I know that well. To find out that I was intentionally, individually created gave me permission to live authentically, just as I am. The gifts that were bestowed upon me are meant to be shared, not suppressed or redesigned for my comfort. It wasn't my job to control the narrative of my impact on the world, but rather allow my life to be a testament of the Creator who has a divine plan and purpose in which all things work together. Because your works are wonderful, and I know that well. Yet, as I began the journey, I started to look at how God's way manifests in others. I struggled. I struggled with this. I began to question, why do they get to? Should I be more like? Then I had thoughts of, I could never. I don't. I'm not. People won't. Comparison. a distraction from who I was called to be. Comparison. Comparison is the thief of joy. It robs us of our ability to see our own worth, our unique gifts, and the way that God intends us to show up in the world. We compare. We get stuck when we constantly look around at how others live or what they have. We begin to feel that our lives are somehow less than, that maybe we aren't enough just as we are. That if we show up as our true selves, we would somehow fall short. Comparison. Comparison sends us to a place where we create distance between creature comfort and the call of the Creator. We give just enough to make us feel that we are on the right path, but never extend outside of our comfort zone. Today, our call is to be our authentic selves in every space, because that's where God dwells, in truth. When we alter the Creator's design, we risk slowing down the very purpose He's called us to accomplish. When we embrace purpose, God plans unfold in ways that we could have never imagined. Growing up, I was different. I didn't necessarily stick out in a big way, not in obvious ways, but there was this feeling that I wasn't like everyone else. But being different isn't always encouraged or celebrated, at least not in ways that I understood. So I found ways to blend in, to hide, to avoid the call placed on my life. Matthew, come in your own way. You're uniquely and fearfully made. I knit you together in your mother's womb. Come. Coming in your own way does not mean you experience the world in a way in which you personally desire. Coming in your own way is to impact the world with the divine purpose in which you were created. When you try to be someone you're not, you're going against the movement of the divine. Yet, many of us take what we believe to be the safer path. At times, our only focus is to fit in, trying to mold ourselves into what is expected by others. At some point, this puts our lives on autopilot. In my life, anxiety set in. And in response, I wanted control. Control of myself, control of the situation, control of what people thought, control of everything around me. When I centered my life on control, I became isolated and lost community. In controlling, I let go of parts of myself that had been created for intentional use. Matthew, it's not too late to come in your own way. I know and created you for a purpose. Opportunity still remains. Eventually, I realized that I didn't need to alter myself. I had been called to stand out, and what was lost could be restored. When we choose authenticity, when we choose purpose, purpose aligns, lives are changed, communities are transformed, and the impact is seen. It is a risk to slow down the purpose we've been called to accomplish. And time is not on our side. Our world needs us now. God is calling, yet we have free will. We are allowed the choice to either answer the call or alter the route. We can continue to take the longer path, but no matter where we go, purpose awaits us. When we choose authenticity, we choose God's way. When we come in this way, lives are changed. Imagine if we together embrace the calling that to be salt and light in the world, acknowledging that our differences are not divisions, but rather reflections of God's love. In doing so, we could create spaces where individuals shine, where society becomes a community of genuine connection. As you explore what it means to come in your own way, I urge you to live as salt and light, individually and collectively, knowing that we are a part of something larger. We are called to bring our authentic self into a world that so deeply needs it. I wonder, what would it look like to simply trust the plan God already has for us? I wonder what it would look like to come in our own way. To come in our own way, we must first seek clarity from the Creator. He says, "Come unto me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle, I am humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Take note, the burden still exists. I wonder what it would look like to be molded into something new. To come in our way, we must relinquish control. You got to let go. We are the clay. You are the potter. We are all the work of your hand. Imagine that. Allowing yourself to be a work of art, uniquely molded, intentionally designed, refined. Each of us has a purpose with a specific contribution. There's an order to our gifts, a way they connect to the world and ultimately back to the Creator. We are all unique parts of a larger purpose. Let's live as we were made, fearfully, wonderfully, intentionally. Our world needs us. So, as you prepare for the week ahead, may you feel empowered to embrace who you truly are, knowing that as God's creation, you already have everything that you need. I invite you to consider, what does it mean to come in your own way, to use your unique gifts as part of God's design? Consider, what would it look like if we lived more openly and embraced the difference that God created in each of us? Consider, how much more joy and peace might we find if we allow ourselves to live as God intended? Consider, what does it mean to live an authentic life and come in your own way? Please pray with me. Dear God, intentional Creator, long ago, you set a plan into motion, and that you created us uniquely and intentionally. Your Spirit calls each of us to be the one you created. We cannot escape your will. Be close, see us, form us, and help us to love who you intimately created. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. That was beautiful. And thank you for being such an authentic person and stepping into God's calling in your life and sharing it. It comes through in every word and every sentence and every gesture in your face as you spoke today. So I want to thank you for that. You know that we allow for questions, right? a little unusual for a church, but we like to, we're a questioning group. So I'm going to kick it off and then I'm going to open up to other people. But I guess I just want to first observe that the description you have about the battle with our egos, comparing ourselves to others, and how difficult it is to be authentic and to believe that we're loved at that level. It's very hard, particularly since many churches, people wearing collars, have told a lot of people that they can't be their authentic self. So, sometimes it's even the church that said that. And I just like, I appreciated that your description of how the plan unfolds when you're in the divine plan, which I believe is true, but it's hard to believe and it's hard to trust. This is speaking as a control freak myself. But my question, I had a couple questions. One real quick question was, you had a point in your life where you switched, you changed. You were following one path, which is a very, very common path, and we've all experienced it. And then something, I don't know if it snapped, I don't know if it was sudden, I don't know what happened, but something shifted. And it was almost like you put new glasses on, you saw the world completely differently. I'm just curious, if it's not too personal, I'm just wondering what happened in that moment that allowed you to shift this authentic, because I think everybody would say they like that idea, but it's quite scary. So it takes courage. So how did you get the courage to face into that?
For me, it was not seeing the world differently. It was God sending people who reminded me that I was seen.
Mm.
Right. And so even with this experience, like I was having a conversation before everyone got on the call, the invitation sent me into a place where I had to do some things because I knew I was seen. Right. And I knew that I had kind of strayed again from the path.
Mm-hmm.
And being a principal and navigating people and doing all the things for all of them, right? You begin to lose yourself. Even though I know it is aligned with divine purpose, there are still pieces of me that I have to put aside every day. But the reminder, the call of saying, hey, you know what? Let's make this happen, and let's make this happen in a quick amount of time. So you can't fake it. You got to pull it together, and you have to bring your true self, because had I had 2 months, you might have gotten something different. But I wouldn't have been shifted. I wouldn't have been changed. I would have been reminded by God through you that I am seen. And that I'm always being watched. So it was a different type of moment. And I think that's happened multiple times in my life, to have a colleague who I don't go and ask for advice, but before a big opportunity called me in and said, hey, let's talk because I see you. And the words they said was, come in your own way. Because yes, I was like, okay, this person's great. I can do it just like them. But no, I'm called to be different.
That's beautiful. And I think it's a reminder for all of us that pay attention to the people that God is bringing into our lives. That's very often how it happens. Somebody says something or it's a person. Can I ask one other quick question for you? And I'll open it up. But what would you say to someone who says, Matthew, I hear you, but being authentic, if I'm authentic, it's actually dangerous for me in the world. And so I'm afraid bad things could happen to me, even physically bad things could happen to me. So I need to pretend to be somebody just for my own safety. What would your advice be to that person?
Pretending to be somebody means that you are nobody. It's a journey. It's hard, and it's not being transparent. It's being vulnerable, and we are hurt. But when we go back to that scripture, where the scripture says, "Hey, the burden is still, the yoke is easy, and the burden is light." So what we are imagining is going to be something extremely difficult when we begin to navigate in the truth. When we get to navigate in authenticity, right? It's a lot easier than what we imagined. And we'll find that when we're doing this in community, that other peoples will start to take their jacket off too, to take their mask off too, because everybody probably on this call is wearing a mask. So it allows you to be the first, because somebody always has to be first, to take the step right? Of saying, you know what, let's be who we were really created to be. It's going to be hard. You may hurt me, but I'm connected to a healer, and he has healed me before. I am connected to a protector, and I've said, hey, God, please guard my heart, but allow me to be vulnerable. You have to go ahead and trust in that space.
Yeah, beautifully said. What I'm taking away from what you're saying is that there's a burden either way, but the much more dangerous burden is
Yes,
inauthenticity and lying to
yes.
yourself and wearing a mask and never knowing yourself and not being self-aware and pretending, though it may seem safer, and it could even be safer in a short-run situation. But in the long run, it's sort of like selling your soul to gain the world kind of deal. You don't. It's a temptation, but it doesn't work out. That's really beautiful.
That is it.
Okay, so
No man to gain the world and lose his soul.
yeah, I've monopolized the questions. I often do, just to give me that right as the pastor, but I am going to open it up to other folks and try to, if you can, ask a question. And I see Ellie has her hand up.
Hey, thank you so much. This was an amazing talk. I was just curious what advice you would give to someone who doesn't feel like they even know who they are, and as an extent doesn't know what their purpose is and how to kind of start on that path to being their authentic self.
Open the book. For me, it was the Bible, right? And so it was me. It was stumbling upon the Psalms and Proverbs and finding the things that had been implanted in me long before. For others, that won't be their book. They'll have something, but go to something that will be your guide, because then you'll start to see yourself and see what the promises are for your life, what the Creator has given you individually, and all the things. If the book isn't it, then put yourself in community. You can't find yourself in isolation, right? Even when we think as humans, right, we are created into a family unit. Now, sometimes our family unit, right, rejects us, but we are created to be in line with someone else. We develop in community. So get in community and find your resource, find the book, right? Find the guide. That would be the advice I get to start, because you don't know yourself. And then guess what? Who you were 5 years ago is not who you are today. Who we are as of October 27th, 2024, will not be the same person we are on November 10th, 2024. At all. And it's going to take, no matter if you were excited or frustrated, confused or understanding the plan, right? It's going to take a moment in which we all, who are meant to impact, who are called to serve, to take a moment and get into community, to take a moment and go to the book and go to the resource, to reset, to navigate what the rest of the call looks like as the world is in chaos.
Excellent. Other questions or comments? Or that was a great question, Ellie. That is tough to, how do you get started? I would just add, you could even challenge a person to pray, and just whoever they pray to, and maybe, as Matthew was saying, the right people will walk into your life to just give you a little sign that you're on the right track, just as a way of it's just a test, particularly if you're a complete non-believer. It's like, what have you got to lose? You know, call it what you want, call it meditation, but open yourself up to it. And God's always looking through the angels to work in our lives. Roxanne, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I guess there's a couple of things that go through my mind, and because of my own personal experience. And I growing up, I did not like who I was, my authentic self, I guess. Didn't like, and I still struggle with that quite a lot. So I think there needs to be a way, and I would suspect that being in a community such as this is where you can find a way to love yourself And I think that requires perhaps the support of angels and a community. So when you say get into a community, and that's good advice. And another thing that I think is a hurdle, and my gosh, this is exactly what's happening in this very polarized environment, is you may say, this is who I am, and the rest of the world is saying, no, that's not who you are. And, you know, we are, we're not always defined by ourselves. We're defined by the other. And that's when it kind of gets dangerous. So somehow, if you can find a way to only accept what God defines you as, if you can sort of find a way to do that. And it's tough, it's hard, and I'm not sure. I struggle with it all of the time. But I think we have to be a little bit careful, because that's what being in society is. I mean, the other defines us, for better or for worse, many times.
And I agree, and I thank you so much for sharing. The other can define us, but also what are we aligned with, right? So as we're being defined by something else, right? That is their saying, but who does God, like you said, who does God say that I am, right? I am here saying, you know what, I don't want to be on camera because I haven't gotten a haircut. But God says, Matthew, you are uniquely made, right? You are perfect just for time as this, because right now it doesn't matter how you look, right? It matters that I'm speaking through you, right?
Yeah.
But whatever it may be. So I think it's just kind of making sure that even in the I don't believe, and they continue to say, God, I'm going to align and trust whatever that may be. And it's hard, but it takes you having the moment where you unmute, where you pick up the phone and say, this is where I'm struggling. I don't see it, right? Help me, remind me of how to see it. So yes, community is a beautiful thing.
Thank you. Any other questions for Matthew? Katerina?
Matthew, thank you so much for that beautiful, beautiful message. You are a principal of a middle school. What is the best lesson you've learned from the middle schoolers that surround you about being authentic and building a community where you can shine and celebrate diversity?
Be comfortable with the uncomfortable. And middle school is a very odd space. Bodies are changing, like they're getting a lot of freedom. There's it's just weird, right? So then I've learned that I need to be weird too. So I'm going to put on random costumes on the dress up day, right? To just say, you know what, it's weird. We don't know who we are. We're figuring it out, but we're going to have fun while we do it, right? We're going to create moments that are going to be lasting positive memories. So in the midst of this person just called me fat, just called me ugly, here comes Mr. Morris with a full-on leopard suit, blasting whatever the top song is right now, telling me that he's excited to see me. So he's replacing that moment with a more substantial memory. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you,
Have
Matt.
fun. Mhm.
Any other questions, comments? Well, I think I'm reading everybody's mind and thinking, if I am saying this out loud, that they're thinking, wow, I wish I had a principal like Matthew when I was in middle school, because those are tough years. And to have a person who just has the divine working through him to love those kids is such a powerful thing in the world. And maybe it's the thing that we need most in the world right now, is for kids to know that they're loved, and whoever they are, whatever they're like, whatever authentically they are, that they're loved. And hearing that from an adult is so crucial. So knowing that Matthew's in that school with those kids is really, makes me feel really good. Without any other questions or comments, I'm going to close out our question time. But Matthew, thank you so much for being authentic, for being a role model, and for being the clay that God can work in the world through to make the beautiful pots and the service that you do provide for the world. We're really grateful for it. And thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.